In March 2022, the new employee began working at the company and completed the site safety orientation, health and safety orientation, and an online ground disturbance awareness course on the first morning. The new worker was then given a tour of the worksite and introduced to the tasks at hand. The superintendent instructed them to observe and learn from the other workers over the next few days, during which they would also explain the hazards and potential pinch points. The other worker told him the most important thing was to always watch for open holes and to make sure they were covered and had barricades around them. The hazards of falling into open holes or excavations were addressed in several of the company's safety documents. However, there were varying procedures followed at the site for protecting workers from open holes. Utilize hole barricades on holes 24 inches or larger in diameter. Unattended open holes to be covered and marked open hole to prevent falls while drilling piles to depth. Ensure barricades and warning signs are in place to prevent property damage while pouring concrete and removing casings. The project hazard assessment in the company's worksite safety plan identifies open excavations as a potential hazard associated with drilling. To mitigate this risk, the plan requires the installation of guardrails with the additional precaution that fall protection must be worn if the guardrail needs to be removed for any operation. The guardrails or handrails section of the company's worksite safety plan states the following. 1. OHS legislation-compliant guardrails are to be used with excavations. 2. All openings must be barricaded and be covered with reinforced plywood. 3. Workers must never leave an opening unattended. Field-level hazard assessments completed by site workers and initialed by the new worker a few days prior to the incident identify open hole as a hazard and stay behind the hole barricade as the control. The driller also completed and signed a foreman's safety meeting record on the day of the incident, 5 hours after the incident. The document lists put plywood down to cover holes as both a task to be done and a hazard control. The rest of the crew, including the new worker, are shown as having either signed or initialed the document between 12:32 p.m. and 12:38 p.m., approximately 5 hours after the incident. On the day of the incident, the employee arrived at work at approximately 7 a.m. and was assigned to assist an employee driller. This was their first time working together. The new employee was replacing the laborer who was not at work that day and was usually assigned to the driller. This was the new employee's 6th day of work for the company. While it was standard practice for the workers to have a safety meeting first thing in the morning, they did not have one the morning of the incident. The new worker opened the C-can and began removing materials. He then went to see the other driller to get some diesel exhaust fluid for his co-worker's drill rig. The driller then moved the rig from over top of the hole, where he had parked it when they finished work the previous Friday, and went to get the skid steer to remove the plywood and backfill the hole. This exposed the plywood covering the hole. The driller says, as he was walking to the skid steer, he told the new worker to watch out for holes. The driller says the new worker had no tasks assigned to him that morning, and he does not know why they went to lift the plywood. The company states that there was only one open hole on site, being the one with the rig parked over top of it. No new holes had been drilled that morning. The new worker said the driller asked him to get a piece of wood to cover a newly drilled hole. He saw the piece of plywood laying on the ground and says he did not realize it was covering an open hole. There was no barrier around it and nothing on top of it. He says there was a light layer of snow on the ground and the plywood, and that he could not see the orange paint on it. The new worker was present when they dug the hole on Friday, but by Monday he had forgotten about it. He says that since he was not operating the skid steer, he did not know which holes were filled in on Friday. He would have known the hole was there if it had a barricade around it or something on top of the plywood. The new worker bent down and grabbed the plywood with both hands, and as he stood up, he took a step forward and fell into the hole. He landed on the rebar cage and concrete pile 7 meters below. EMS was called and arrived within 10 or 15 minutes. They lowered a harness to the employee and pulled him out of the hole. He was transported to the hospital by ambulance within 30 or 40 minutes of his fall. The employee suffered permanent life-altering injuries. He also suffers related mental health issues. He spent several weeks in the hospital and is still receiving regular medical care. He is in constant pain, and his prognosis is uncertain as it relates to his ability to work in the future. A few days after the incident, the company revised its pile and foundational drilling procedure to include the following rules among others. No one should come within 1.8 meters, 6 feet, of a hole's edge during or after drilling unless they are directly involved in the operation. Workers involved must also stay 1.8 meters away from the edge of a drilled hole or caisson, unless it has a liner extending at least 1 meter above the ground. If the liner is not present, workers must be protected from falling by using a fall protection system or a guardrail around the hole. Fall protection systems shall be anchored to a Lego block and be used as fall restriction systems. This will apply for holes that are larger than 30 inches in diameter. A retractable lanyard will be used with the anchor placed at a distance that does not allow for a fall into an open hole to occur. Holes that are 30 inches or greater and cannot be backfilled immediately will have a 5-foot by 5-foot, half-inch steel plate placed over the open hole. If the hole is greater than 46 inches, the plate will be adjusted to ensure 1 foot of overlap. Prior to removal, guardrails will be placed around the hole. A skid steer will remove the plate with a spotter 7 feet away from the hole to ensure that during the backfill process, no one comes into the work zone. We have put together a set of thought-provoking questions to enhance your learning experience. What engineering controls could have prevented this? What types of communication strategies could help outline clear expectations to reduce assumptions and to support new and all types of workers? Would completing a daily field-level hazard assessment have raised more awareness?